Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Nervous System Regulation for Sensitive Souls, a frequency-based approach for cultivating accurate intuition and emotional balance. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and today's program really couldn't be more appropriate since we are in a time of a lot of intensity in the collective, and I know so many people who are feeling spun out or dysregulated in different ways, and it can be a lot. And so we're going to get some really practical guidance here from a leading expert in this field about how we can really regulate our nervous systems in a way that gives us accurate information that can guide our lives in a really in a much clearer, deeper, and more centered way. Her name is Dr. Janine Kreft. She's a psychologist. She's a co-founder of House of Botanique and a yoga teacher as well. And so, Janine, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Stephen. I'm so excited to be here.
Great. Well, it couldn't come at a better time. And I want to let everyone know that we are going to have a brand new program from Dr. Kreft called The Sensitive's Guide to Nervous System Regulation. So more to come if you want to go further, and we'll share more about that towards the end of the hour. So I'm just going to call you Janine because it's just a little easier.
That's fine.
So Janine, I'd love for you to start us off with a little bit of your backstory that led you to bringing out this body of work around sensitive nervous systems and how best to regulate and optimize.
Wow. Well, I was a ballet dancer for many years and went through my own journey. Certainly, that's not the healthiest environment to grow up in, as well as having a pretty significant health trauma. And so once I left that area, I was struggling with a lot of anxiety, depression, agoraphobia, which means I was having trouble leaving the house. And I sought therapy myself. And so this was in my early 20s. And I found so much benefit from that work that I just needed more. And so, cut to getting my doctorate in clinical psychology. I spent a lot of time working with veterans specifically. And so I saw a lot of trauma and was trained in all of the Western style evidence-based treatments. And I just felt a little out of alignment, maybe a lot of out of alignment with those modalities because I kept hitting roadblocks with veterans and I felt like there just had to be another way. And so that's when I started exploring all these other alternative energy-based treatments. So neurolinguistic programming or access consciousness, EFT tapping, you name it, I have trained in it because I was a seeker and looking for what else is possible to help people heal with ease. And that's when I started to make the connection about the nervous system. And so this was really, I would say 2019 or so that I started teaching about it online because I got to this place of, I need to talk about this. People need to know about this. And this is a more holistic point of view. And so at that time, I was teaching it more in the sense of helping folks recover from trauma. But then zoom forward a couple more years, I realized, wow, okay, our intuitive states are deeply connected to our nervous system state. And so if we're not regulated, we're not actually getting clear intuitive hits. And so that's where I started to integrate the work with the nervous system and then start to teach about it as frequency, being a radio receiver to help people better understand how they're tuning into their personal dial and not getting interference from, as you said, all of the other collective intensities that are going on right now.
Fascinating. I love how these different things have flowed together into your work. And yeah, what you said there was, I think, interesting is that when we're dysregulated, then we are cut off from our deeper sources of information. So there's kind of like a negative feedback loop. And I think a lot of people are experiencing that right now, where they get kind of ungrounded, they get spun out, and they can't kind of find their way again. So maybe share a little bit about what's happening when people get into that more spun out or overwhelmed kind of state, and then how do we start to get it back on track using this kind of more holistic approach that you've evolved?
Sure. So intuition is a very calm, energetic state, and it's like a whisper. It is so subtle. It lands in this very calm knowing, and you have to be in a regulated state to hear it. So when people are consuming a lot of scary media that might be going on, or even a lot of different points of view, the field starts to get muddy. Because if I'm, for instance, taking in a lot of news information and it's fear-based and my nervous system starts to get dysregulated, then I'm going to start to align with a lot of fear and doubt frequencies, because ultimately it is all frequency. Whatever I am being, I'm projecting back out and it's coming back to me. So as you said, it is kind of this loop that keeps happening. And then I think, oh my gosh, I had an intuitive hit, something scary is going to happen. And then it just kind of ramps up. And so I really encourage people to get regulated first before they tune into their intuition. Because if it's something that has a lot of charge, then likely it's a dysregulated response, because intuition is always calm, it's stable, it's unwavering, it doesn't change. So it's helpful to take a step back, especially if something is really triggering. Go regulate and tune in again. And if the message is the same, then you know, okay, that's intuition. But if it changes, then you know it was based on your current nervous system state.
So it's not so much about the content, because it could be is a challenging or negative outcome that's coming, but it's just more like if you're in thinking you're intuiting that from a fear based, it's probably there's stuff that's clouding the actual accurate perception.
Yeah, and so basically, I like to see it as this channel, so to speak. And when you are consuming a lot of information, think about filling almost like a clear glass of water, and you're consuming all this information, maybe news or even other social media influencers. You're kind of pouring different levels of thickness and densities into that water. It's starting to muddy the water. And so your channel is no longer clear because you've overconsumed so much information. And to me, intuition really does require space in order for it to land, because again, it's so subtle. And so I really encourage folks to actually reduce their consumption to help intuit what they're experiencing, because that will drain the swamp, and then you'll start to get much clearer hits, because ultimately people are always connected. They don't need to raise their sensitivity, they actually need to refine their precision with how they are connecting.
Mm-hmm. So share a little bit about how a more sensitive nervous system, what are some of the signs that you have more sensitivity and might need to be even more judicious about how much you let in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's say when you enter a room of people and you immediately can perceive everything that's going on in there, even if no one's saying in it, you're aware of what this person is experiencing, you're aware of what this person is going through, and you can just feel all these things. And what tends to happen is people tend to collapse in their nervous system because they start to absorb what everyone else is projecting, rather than making themselves the dominant frequency and standing in their own power. And so instead, it starts to collapse. Maybe they start to feel anxious or irritable, maybe just out of nowhere. So if people feel like that is happening, or they can't stay true in their own center, then that's a good indication that you're especially sensitive to energies around you, especially in big groups of people, let's say.
Mhm. So when you're working with people individually, and they are more sensitive, like, are
Yeah,
and they still want to stay engaged in, what's happening in the world, maybe involved in our democracy or whatever, that
of
they,
course.
what do you how far down do you recommend them going to taking like a kind of a longer break altogether and then kind of like working your way back up? How much can you handle? I'm just curious.
Sure. Sure. Looking at, I would say, curating your feed or curating your input. So you're limiting it to just your specific intakes that you like to hear, especially to, yeah, stay present on what is going on rather than just putting your head in the sand. And being mindful about how much time. So, how much time are you spending, and who specifically are you consuming? And ultimately, you do have to tune into how is this making you feel? And if it
Mhm.
is constantly contributing to a fear-based state, it's having you collapse, then that might be something you want to adapt somehow. And look, this isn't forever, because when people are first starting out, it is helpful to reduce it a lot to start to build up your strength in your own energy field and stand in that. And then you're able to consume more without it affecting you, because that's the thing. It's not about walling up, right, and kind of blocking the whole world out. It's being able to be aware and not absorb it, and just have that come through your awareness. Oh, okay. But then it not affect your field ultimately.
Hmm. So what are some of the clear signals that something has kind of gotten over the line and has started to affect your field and degrade the quality of your consciousness?
I would say when you start to go into a lot of doubt and fear, because ultimately that is not your natural state of being. Your natural state of being is calm, connected, and feeling grounded. And so if you're starting to feel a sense of urgency, so you're going into a flight mode, I need to check my phone a lot, I need to check the news or whatnot, or you're going into a freeze state, shut down, you're just kind of numbing out to scroll nonstop, you feel like you can't get things done, those are good indications that you are really starting to collapse on yourself.
Hmm. And so if you are noticing that you've kind of gone into some of the fear and doubt spirals, it's like, so
Yeah.
what are your kind of first pullback from adding more in, or what are some of the steps that you recommend?
Yeah, so I would say in that moment when you notice, you might need something pretty abrupt with yourself because likely the momentum has gotten pretty great. So I might say, Janine, stop, stop, stop. This is not mine. Return to sender. I don't require this doubt right now. And I need to go move my body ultimately. So even if that's just for a walk, going to clean the house, I need to shift my physical state by moving my physical body. And that'll get the energy going in a different direction. And then I can change my focus because ultimately it is a game of focus here. The momentum builds so great depending on what I'm sending my energy to. So it really is about training ourselves to shift our energy somewhere else.
Hmm. But for you go a little deeper into you were talking about the radio signal and sort of frequency, and so talk a little bit more about your understanding of energy and frequency and how we're sort of, keep it at a high frequency, which I think all of us in the Shift Network are aiming to do,
Yeah.
even when you're sort of have a lot of sort of lower frequency coming in, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see ourselves at this kind of antenna, if you will. We're all projecting out frequencies and we're receiving frequencies. And so when two frequencies come together, what the dominant one wins. The one that is the strongest and the most steady is the one that the other frequencies are going to match to. And so that's what people have to be mindful as of, especially as people who are sensitive, they tend to people please or bend to other people's frequencies. So if someone is particularly irritable or frustrated, maybe they join them in that frequency, even though they were feeling good, in order to maybe help them feel better or something like that. But ultimately, what would be more helpful is for us to just stand in our own frequency and still project that out in a strong, calm, certain manner rather than collapsing in on ourselves and seeking to mirror someone else's frequency. So that's ultimately what can help. People have to just be really intentional about what they're projecting out. And I like to almost see myself as inflating up like a golden balloon or star that is inflating and projecting out rather than collapsing in. And it is really subtle, but you can feel the difference.
Hmm. And it sounds like from what you said before that you really see the physical component of activity or exercises.
Mhm.
That's really central to creating that stronger place of emanation, it sounds like.
Yeah, and so I sense that, me being a ballet dancer for 17 years, so I was very active as a kid and really in my body, embodied very early on. And now I teach hot yoga, I do hot yoga regularly, and so that is a common practice for me to reground in the physical body. And I really do sense how important it is to take care of our physical bodies because to me, that is our instrument in perceiving and receiving energy. And so it's like an instrument, right? You have to tune your instrument to make sure it is sounding good. And so it's the same with our bodies. We have to take really great care of them to be making sure we're receiving accurate signals and not collapsing in on
Hmm.
ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I found in the last month or so, I've really ramped up my workouts in order to
Mm.
meet this collective moment we're in, and it really does make such a difference. I've been getting up at like 5:30 and doing a
Yep.
workout before I start the day, and swimming a couple miles a week, and just like that physical intensity just kind of resets, and it's necessary to meet the energetic intensity. So that's like the physical level. What are some practices that strengthen energetically so that you're kind of coming more from that calm centered place that you recommend?
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about the physical because to me it is really about circulating the energy and getting that moving. So when we're looking to sustain these higher level states, it's going to feel more intense on the body. So yes, the physical is amazing. Some practices that I do actually that I find really helpful to reverse the collapsing, so to speak, is to listen to really potent, uplifting songs. So, for instance, I love Unstoppable by Sia because it's so potent. But just listening to that song, I imagine my energy barriers lowering, my energy expanding out, I'm inflating, and I'm just getting really big and expanding my energy out way far past my physical body. And that creates such a relaxation response for my physical body and allows me to have more space because ultimately I get that we have easier awareness and we're more grounded when we are spaciousness, along with being grounded at the same time.
That makes a lot of sense because it's like so much of that collapsing is like the pulling back in, and then you
Mhm.
kind of diminish your energy because you have less field, if you will. That's really interesting with the music intervention. So you kind of
Mhm.
see that as like sort of a daily practice, almost like a energy music kind of intervention, like almost like a meditation where you're sort of like, okay, I'm going to inflate back up here.
Yeah, yes, actually, that's exactly it because I've been doing meditation for a long time and that's always my morning first thing go to create a little more space in my mind. So this practice is actually slightly different in that I'm looking to then circulate energy. So the meditation is a little more passive and I'm looking to create space and ease in my mind, but then I'm training my frequency, my intention to, as you know, you're saying, kind of balloon back out with a higher intensity music and to just get things flowing and to feel those maybe goosebumps that you feel, the high level of gratitude, just those elevated emotions that we're looking for to help really move out into the world and feel strong in my frequency.
Are there elements of this that also you focus more around thought cycles and patterns and sort of like programming your sort of mental patterns to sort of match that sort of same calm, centered frequency pattern
Oh,
you're wanting
yeah.
to create?
Oh, yeah. So, whether it be through journaling or depending on my state, I'm either using auto suggestions or affirmations. So, depending on how you're feeling, if you're kind of more in a doubt spiral, there's a lot of heavy momentum. You got to zoom out and almost take a firm hand with yourself. And that's where I really like auto suggestions because this is just saying, this is the way it is. This is not my doubt. I don't own this. I'm confident. I'm moving forward. You just, even if you're not ready to believe it, by you saying it with conviction to yourself, you're shifting the energy, you're moving it in the direction you want to go. And if I'm already feeling good, then I still utilize those thoughts. I just might not need to use them in such a masculine, forceful way. I can be more of the thinking of, oh, this is how my future self responds, and how does she walk through the world, and what is she thinking right now? And so that way, that's a little bit more of a feminine approach, but I can use that when I'm at a higher state.
Hmm. What do you recommend in terms of like sometimes people when they've gotten to the overwhelmed state or the collapse state, it's like you've taken in a lot of other people's energy, sort of like clearing out other people's energies and tensions, you know, sort of like in a way,
Mm.
sort of creating more of a frequency bubble or something for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So during those times, that's where you might want to really limit consumption. Look, maybe even taking a consumption fast for a couple days. You know, you can have a good friend keep you apprised of any really pertinent news or whatnot, but taking a consumption fast for a couple days, really being intentional with like water. So to me, doing a salt bath is really huge to
Mm.
help cleanse your energy and feel more grounded, and taking really mindful showers where you're imagining energetic cords wash away from you. There's so many different ways, but it can be just as simple as you setting your intention to release all energy that's not yours. It can be
Mhm.
as simple as that. It doesn't need to be some complex thing. It's really about owning your power and commanding the energy to what you want to experience.
Mm, I like that. So commanding the energy, be more intentional with it. So, yeah, so I think now would be a great time. You've set a really great context for understanding. I know there's a few practices you were going to guide us in that we can take home with us. So why don't we do that now?
Amazing. Yeah. So, what I'm going to do is guide you all through alternate nostril breathing, and then we'll go straight into a visualization. So, we're starting off with the nostril breathing because it helps calm your nervous system and clear your mind. And we need those things in order to get clear intuitive hits. And then we're going to do a little visualization of clearing the channel. So, we'll start off by taking your right hand, and you're going to take your middle three fingers and just rest them on right about your third eye. So that way you can touch your nose easily with your thumb and pinky finger. So I know it's a little challenging to see me, but we'll close the right nostril with the right thumb and then inhale through the left. And close the left, open the right, and you'll exhale. Nice and slow. Inhale through the right. Close the right and exhale. Inhale through the left. And close and exhale. Slowing down the breathing. Inhale, nice deep breath. Close and exhale through the left. We're going to keep doing a couple more of those. Inhale through the left. Close the left and exhale. Inhale through the right. And close and exhale. Couple more rounds. Inhale through the left. Close and exhale. Inhale through the right. Close and exhale. Inhale through the left. Close and exhale through the right. Let's do one more round. Inhale through the right. And close and exhale through the left. All right, you can remove your hand and just take a moment to get grounded in your seat, lowering your gaze or closing your eyes. Take a moment to return to some softened, easy breathing. Just in through the nose and out. Two more. In through the nose. And let it out. One more easy breath. In through the nose. And exhale. Returning to easy automatic breathing. And allowing yourself to start to go inward. Feeling yourself grounded in your seat. Roots coming out of your body, connecting to the earth. Imagine lowering your energetic barriers in front of you. And starting to expand your energy out. Expand it from every pore, every cell. Inflate your energy out. Way past your physical body, past the room that you're in. Maybe filling up your entire town. Now, in this expanded state, tune into your personal frequency, your channel. And notice, is it pure? Is it you? Or is it a bit cloudy, muddy? Just notice with your awareness. Simply observe. Now you notice a dial on the side of your channel. And you realize you can turn this dial. So you start to play around with it. And you notice one direction starts to purify your channel, refine your frequency. Turn it all the way up. Imagine that channel purifying. It's clear. It's potent. It's you. Feel that channel from your root to your chakra. All the way to your crown. Embody this frequency and project it out. And take a moment to really notice, what does it feel like? What does your frequency feel like? And what would it take to move about the world in this way all the time? Projecting out love, gratitude, and compassion. Take a moment to come back to your current awareness with a few deep intentional breaths. Two more breaths to bring your awareness back. And as you come back, you can slowly open your eyes, continuing to stand in your new frequency.
Beautiful. That feels really good. Do you
Amazing.
want to share a little bit about why the alternate nostril breathing actually works?
Yeah, so I love that it involves a little bit of thinking because it does get your attention on something to do, which gets your mind off maybe whatever it's spiraling. And so that helps ground you to the present moment. Certainly, breath work is really helpful for moving energy throughout the body. And then it also helps with mental clarity because we're kind of engaging both hemispheres of the brain. And so I find this one really helpful and grounding when I need to get clarity fast or I just need to come down fast. And so it only takes a couple minutes for you to find benefits from.
With the intuition portion of this,
Yeah.
you were a little bit more just open-ended. Do you find it can be helpful to sort of ask for clarity around a particular thing or what to do next? Or so you share anything about it's helpful in terms of tuning the antenna for the information that's most useful?
Yeah, so I find that it kind of depends on where you're at. And with that experience, I was really looking to open folks up to their receiving
Hmm.
possibilities because to me, that's when information lands, is when I'm not looking for it or even asking for it. Because when I am in the energy of asking, sometimes it can be in the space of, I don't have the answer, versus if I just come to myself, my calm knowing, then exactly what I need to know lands. And so if I just cleanse the channel, information starts to drop in.
Beautiful. So I think that gets us to a really great baseline. How do you,
Yeah.
any tips around maintaining that baseline as you engage your daily life outside of the practice?
Yeah, and so certainly the more you rehearse something, especially something as simple as that, taking 10 minutes and doing it regularly, it is so powerful. So that really will amplify your baseline to do it like an athlete would, right? When I was in ballet, we did tendus, plies, pirouettes, like every single class. We do the same thing over and over again. So I always encourage folks to not minimize the simplicity of a practice through repetition. The repetition is huge. But when you're just moving throughout your day, a simple little inflation of projecting your energy out, imagining it going out rather than collapsing in, even when you're engaging with people, can be so powerful because even just those micro repetitions will start to train your body so that is your default state.
Hmm, I love that. Yeah, so I've been asking a lot of the questions. I know you probably had a lot that you want to share today. So let's create some space for some of the other aspects of this that you want to share.
Sure. Well, gosh, I love the questions because I tend to be a natural responder. But I'm curious, what else do you sense would be helpful for people to know?
Well, I think that it's something around like the translation of sort of intuition into action. Probably we haven't really covered as much. There's getting really clear information, and then when you are, I've noticed it in myself sometimes. I'll get clear guidance on things, and then sort of I'm like, oh, I can be a little hesitant to put it into
Mhm.
action because it's like it's particularly with the political situation right now, it's so kind of combative and intense and kind of has a violent energy about it, and that's not how I like to operate. And so sometimes like something around how to sort of engage in those actions that you're guided to, however your participation is, in a way that still kind of maintains the frequency that you're
Mm.
optimized for.
Yeah, so I sense when you're getting guidance to choose something, first I want to make sure that it's clear guidance, it's from my intuition, it's from a grounded place, and I start to ask questions around it, like, will this create greater for me to speak up, say something? Will this create greater for me? I'm not looking for, is this right? Is this wrong? Because judgment gets us in a loop. I'm just looking
Hmm.
for, will this be more expansive for humanity, for myself, for the collective, for me to engage in a certain way? Because from my sense, everyone has different roles to play. And how we're being led right now tends to be from a lot of unhealed folks. And
Hmm.
so I've found my role to be in empowering sensitive souls, people who know there's a different way to function in this world, and stand up and speak up and be the dominant frequency. Because to me, we have a lot of loud frequencies that are not healthy right now, and we need the healed people to be loud, but loud in a way that they out create the noise. So rather than fighting, you're over here creating the new. Because to me, ultimately, that is what will create greater, is us using our energy to create what we want to experience rather than fight what is.
Great. And to do so with a lot of power and clarity in it. So it's
Yeah.
not trying to dominate or assert, but it's just simply stronger. It sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's undeniable. And to me, those people, those leaders will be unstoppable because they're grounded, they've done the work, they're coming from an ethical, integral place, and that ultimately is going to recalibrate the planet.
Hmm. Do you want to say anything about just like um, how to work with like community support, friends, kind of like optimize for a more sensitive nervous system? Like what tends to sort of, reinforce or kind of create more of a healing support system for people?
Mm. I mean, engaging in community practices, even with, let's say, going to a sound bath or going to a restorative yoga, like getting out of your house and engage with your community in ways that you find enjoyable. Because ultimately, the more that people are doing things with other people that lights them up, that's going to raise everyone's frequency naturally. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be all this hard work of just constantly being in our house and doing a lot of breath work and meditation and whatnot, but connecting with each other and having fun together. Ultimately, that's going to raise everyone up in general. So sometimes I think it doesn't have to be so complicated. It can be as simple as just put the phone down and go have a conversation, a nurturing conversation with a friend over some tea or something like that can be so healing.
Hmm. So it sounds like it could be even just the step of like really inventorying what is lifts your frequency, what, and just
Yeah.
knowing yourself better, and then being able to intuitively do the right interventions at the right time. It sounds like is a lot of it.
Yeah, yeah. And so I like to function from this place of question, I would say, is just asking again, what is going to create the greatest? What is light for me to choose right now? I function from that a lot. And so I might have the ping to, yeah, get out and go to a coffee shop. And I don't know why, but if I follow that, then maybe I'll engage with somebody or interact with somebody that I would have never expected. But being able to listen to that internal guidance is what creates the magic in the world ultimately, and creates a lot more ease in your life rather than trying to filter through, is it the right thing to do, the wrong thing to do? Your intuition doesn't function from judgment. It just functions from what's going to create more expansion.
I love that. Well, I think now would be a great time to talk more explicitly about your upcoming course, since it's a really a perfectly timed and very important way for to get the kind of solid, grounded guidance to put this into practice in our lives in a way that really benefits ourselves and the collective too, so that we're optimizing our own well-being as well as our contribution to the larger whole. So we're very excited that Janine is going to be teaching the Sensitive's Guide to Nervous System Regulation, frequency-based healing practices for emotional clarity and intuitive precision. You can
Mm.
find it at the URL sensitivesoulregulation.com, sensitivesoulregulation.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. It's just if you feel called and you to this work and you recognize that you've been going into overwhelm or feeling off center, or that your system is just not metabolizing things in the way that you really know it could. And this is going to give you some really powerful tools to do so in a better way. So, Janine, I'd love for you to share in your own words just some of your intentions of what people will come away with if they choose to join you, and then we'll go through the modules and give a preview of what's coming in each.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have just realized, especially lately, and a little bit how I mentioned earlier, that I have this deep calling to empower sensitive souls, aware people to stand up and really use their gifts and move throughout the world in a really empowered way, rather than feeling like they're being controlled or need to follow an old, outdated program that isn't healthy for any of us. And so, through the course, we're going to go through all the ways that you can discern exactly what is an intuitive hit versus dysregulation or emotional bias or a limiting belief. Because Look, this is something that I've seen online a lot is folks saying, oh, I got an intuitive hit or I got a ping or whatnot. And I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds more like dysregulation or right. And I was starting to notice a lot of that. And I love that people are really tuning into their intuition more. And to me, it's really not about becoming more sensitive because your intuition is speaking to you constantly. It's just getting rid of the interference. And so my intention for folks is to walk away feeling very clear that they know, oh, yep, that's an intuitive hit. Yep. And then I can choose to move through the world right that way with ease, because that's a whole other thing, as you mentioned earlier, is like, okay, I got this intuitive hit, but then the action has my nervous system a little, nervous to take action on that. So it is about self-sourcing and regulating your nervous system so that you can stand in your power, so that you feel like you're really living in an aligned, integral way.
Great. So module 1 is called Explore Your Nervous System, and frequency is the key to energetic stability and intuitive accuracy.
Yes. So, really, a fancy way of us talking about the nervous system in general, the foundations of the nervous system. And I speak to it from the polyvagal point of view, which is really looking at the nervous system on a spectrum rather than an on off switch, because that's kind of the old model. You're either, stressed out or you're relaxed. And the polyvagal theory sees it as you go through different stages depending on where you're at. So you can be socially engaged, you can be in fight or flight, or you can be down in a shutdown mode. So giving people really clear information about that so they know how the nervous system works, because to me, the nervous system is frequency. And so that's the same as tying it into the frequency of the body and starting to understand yourself as a radio station.
Module 2, recognize dysregulation and how nervous system states shape perception.
Yes, so this is a big one because, again, sometimes these states can be really subtle. And so you might know, okay, well, I know a fight state is when I'm like in a physical fight or yelling. But what people don't realize is just starting to feel defensive, people are starting to amplify a fight state. And so, really being able to catch those subtle signs from the fight, flight, freeze is imperative, because those are coloring folks' perception of their intuition. So, when people gain awareness about their current state, they'll know, oh, okay, that's dysregulation. That's not my intuition. I can go regulate instead.
Module 3, strengthen your body's capacity to hold higher frequencies and receive clear intuitive messages.
So again, that physical body is so important, and us taking care of it in a way that is aligned for us is so important, because this is your instrument. And so kind of as we were talking about earlier, doing so much physical movement is so great to get that frequency going. And part of this process is attuning, training your body to hold higher and higher levels of frequency. So I always tell my clients, it's kind of like taking folks through an athletic training, but for your frequency. So we want to train it so it is highly attuned, and that nothing in the physical body, like, being too inflamed or feeling too tired because we're not taking care of ourselves, is interfering with your intuitive hits.
Makes total sense, and it certainly resonates with what I've been experiencing lately. So module 4
Yeah.
then goes into refine your emotional frequency, release distortions, tune into higher states, and shift your narrative.
Yes. Yes. So oftentimes, what I see is folks say they got an intuitive hit, but it's really an emotional reaction or an emotional bias. And the thing is, your intuition is not emotional, it's energetic. And so people got to learn to separate the difference between those, because emotional, that'll have a lot of charge, and your intuition doesn't have charge. It's that calm, cool knowing. So this is where we're going to go into where there might be emotional biases or thought forms that are contributing to it, so that way people have a better understanding of, oh, okay, that's an emotional reaction there, not necessarily an intuitive hit.
Module 5 then goes into the power of precision, how your thoughts act as quantum code for energetic protection and clarity.
Yes. So I love this because I love quantum linguistics and really looking at our thoughts, because our thought forms are really just a translation of the energy we are experiencing. That's huge for people to get. Thought forms are translating the energy you're experiencing. And so I call it energy fluency, if you will. And so When we start to put a lot of attention on certain thought forms and stories, that's what builds up different emotional states and then ramps up to, oh, I'm feeling an intuitive hit. It's like, oh, that's an emotional state. So it's kind of guiding people through that whole process so that they see, oh, okay, if I'm really focused on this story, this is going to build momentum in a certain way. And maybe I'm going to not get as clear of reads on what I'm perceiving.
Module 6, ground, align, and strengthen your intuition to receive higher guidance with certainty.
Yes. So once we've kind of covered all of these foundations, this is where we start to integrate it back and start to re-inflate ourselves so that we're starting to move with precision and being really aligned with what is coming through that channel. So now that we've stabilized the body, we know it's not an emotional hit, we're tuning the thoughts, we're starting to train ourselves to think in a way that we desire, because that's the whole thing. We want to build momentum in a way that we want so that I can start to rehearse my future self and start to live that reality now.
And finally, module 7, lock in your frequency, integrate, regulate, and build your personalized intuition practice.
Yeah, so this is where we integrate everything that you've learned and we really customize it so it works for you and you can learn what practices, processes are ideal for you to continue practicing on, because there's stages of this, especially when we're in training. You know, when you're building a muscle, you need to go in pretty intense, right? And start to live heavier and heavier. But then once you've built the muscle, you're able to sustain it. You can back off a little bit and maybe you're working out a couple times a week or you're not as intense with it, but you're able to sustain it. So it's learning what is specific to you, an intense sprint, if you will, to start to train yourself, and then how you can move into a more integrated approach later on that is sustainable.
Hmm. I love that you have the ballet training originally, and sort of that framework for working with intuition is really helpful here. So this is going to be a perfect program for this moment. It's really so ideally tuned to just what people need, and I hear it in so many people I talk to that there is this sense of overwhelm or not quite being sure how to regulate and go through this time that we're in and make our best contribution. So again, it's all at sensitivesoulregulation.com, sensitivesoulregulation.com. If you choose to participate in the course, you'll have these 7 90-minute live sessions with Janine that we just described, which include time to ask your questions live as well. They'll also get recordings as well as video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly practices you can do at home and that you can really bake into your life. And then a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience. There's also a number of extra bonuses that Janine has created to enhance the value of your journey. There's a Unlock the Power of Your Imagination. It's a series of video journeys with Janine. You want to share more about that?
Yeah, so this is when I was really starting to look at, you know, on the news when Simone Biles, viral image was going around of her meditating before going on to the mat at the Olympics. I was just realizing at really the level and the power of our imagination in creating our reality and how high level athletes do it. And so even though we might not be Olympian athletes, we can still use that in our daily lives to create our reality. And so these are a bunch of guided visualizations to help create the reality you're desiring with whatever you're struggling with, whether it's letting go of doubt, being more abundant, living as your future self now. That's what we're doing, is rehearsing the future reality so that it becomes more potent than your current reality.
Great bonus right there. There's also another bonus that Janine has created called Living Beyond Judgment. And as you said earlier, judgment does debilitate our intuition. So you want to share a little bit about your videos on living beyond judgment?
Yeah, this is a great two-part call where I go deep dive into judgment. And a lot of people don't realize that judgment is quite dysregulating to the nervous system. So oftentimes people don't hear about it when they're talking about nervous system regulation, but judgment is really anything we've deemed as right or wrong or good or bad. And certainly we've been taught our whole lives to live that way. And yet there is a different way where you can still live from awareness and still use discernment. So you don't need to function from this is good, I need to resist and react, or align and agree. I can live in a different way that won't dysregulate your nervous system.
That's super helpful. Really great bonus right there.
Yeah.
And then there's one special bonus, which is actually 37 bonuses in one, which is really incredibly generous. And that's our special bonus when you sign up right away, which gives you really an extra encouragement to go and tune in with the page. And if you feel called to move forward after everything you're hearing, then you're going to get a special bonus. Again, the page is sensitivesoulregulation.com. And this is the special bonus today is regulate your nervous system with The Sanctuary. There's actually 37 guided videos with Janine for lasting peace. You want to share more about that, Janine?
Yeah, so this one is huge because, like you said, there are so many videos in there, and basically each one is a different practice. So there's different breath works, tappings, visualizations, you name it, on all sorts of different topics. And before each call, 30-minute calls, I go into a little snippet of the topic of the day, and then we go into very specific curated regulation and visualization practices that go along with it. So it's a super potent and in-depth resource library for folks.
That's an amazing resource library to get as just as a bonus when you sign up by
Yeah.
midnight tonight. So again, it's at sensitivesoulregulation.com. So a few more things about the course. It's we've kept the investment very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128. You save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start on April 23rd and run Wednesdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings and the transcripts in the community as well. There's some beautiful testimonials from people who have experienced the power of Janine's work, and really, it's you're in great hands. And Janine's really done her homework and developed these perspectives and systems that's grounded in energy work and psychology and many different modalities of personal transformation. And you, I think, are going to come out with a much stronger toolkit for yourself and enhanced ability to really broadcast out the frequencies that you want to reach the world. So again, it's all at sensitivesoulregulation.com, and you get that special 37-part bonus when you sign up by midnight tonight, which is regulate your nervous system with The Sanctuary. So Janine, we're coming near the end of our hour. A lot of great insights and information, so much you've shared already. Anything you still want to share with folks who are considering doing the course with you?
Yeah, I would say you already know. You already know if it's for you. You feel that intuitive pull or that nudge. And what if you allowed yourself to trust that? Because ultimately, that you strengthening that over time, choosing that over and over again, is strengthening that muscle of your intuition. And that's what we need. We need people like you to transform the earth. Ultimately, whether it be at your local level, whether it be at the government level, whatever it is, we need empowered, sensitive souls to start to step into their gifts and own it. Because ultimately, to me, that's what's going to transform the world. And that's the world I want to live in.
Amen to that. And I've often said that sensitive souls are just the avant-garde of humanity. So we have to empower them and us
Yes,
to stand up, and that's how we shape the future we want to create. So beautiful.
100%.
100%. Well, Jeannie, it's been wonderful to be with you. Thank you for your wisdom, and thank you all for joining. If you want to go further, again, it's all at sensitivesoulregulation.com. And the name of the program, again, is The Sensitive's Guide to Nervous System Regulation, frequency-based healing practices for emotional clarity and intuitive precision. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
God bless.